So in the last couple of days, my phone's been ringing off the hook, and I've got texts and emails from all of you wanting to know what did happen in Pennsylvania. So I haven't spoken as yet because I want to make sure that I've got the facts and I've got the conclusions based on the information that I've been able to derive thus far. Here's where I come down on it. There are three things that make me believe that this was coordinated and something very sinister was going on besides just the kid that at 20 years old climbed the roof and decided to take out the Republican nominee for president. We have eyewitnesses who saw the shooter on the roof. They alerted the police. They waved for the Secret Service violently, hysterically, and nothing happened. They allowed this kid to climb the roof with a rifle. Interestingly, the police and the Secret Service were aware of his presence for an hour before the attempted assassination. They were following him. Now, the official word is that they lost him in the crowd. I leave it to you whether you believe that or not. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I believe that. But regardless, through one way, means or another, he did scale to the top of that roof, 125 yards from the nominee for president of the Republican Party for president of the United States. And he took a position. We now also know that Secret Service snipers had him in their sights for 3 minutes. And there seems to be the consensus that they were told not to take the shot. Why would you not take the shot? You've got a sniper on a building with the former president of the United States on the podium, and you don't take the shot? I'm not feeling it. Third, they took him out after 5 rounds of ammunition were fired from that AK assault weapon. So for those of you who have asked, was this coordinated? Is it deep state material? I have to tell you, that is my instinct. There's one thing and one thing alone that causes me to stop just short of that, and that is because they didn't succeed. If you watch the Kennedy assassination in Dallas, as I have for the last 60 years, over and over again from every angle and every piece of information, there were at least 2 shooters in Dealey Plaza, and most people who've studied it believe that there were as many as 6. To the best of our knowledge, there was only 1 in Pennsylvania. That gives me pause and makes me think that maybe it wasn't coordinated, but at a very minimum, I would say that this person was allowed to go up on that roof and take a shot, and then he was killed. I would have preferred they shot him in the shoulder so we could have interviewed him and find out what really was behind all of this. And we've devoted a fair amount of time, as you can imagine, to the conflict in the Middle East, particularly in Gaza, Israeli
occupation of Gaza. Palestine.
People do say that Israel is occupying Gaza, but my perception is that through agreement, they designated Gaza to be a place where Palestinians can live peacefully. Am I wrong?
You are wrong, because before Israel came in and took over the country, the Muslims, the Jews, the Christians, they were all living peacefully all throughout Palestine. So for them to say there were no Jews there prior to the Zionist state moving in and occupying, that wasn't true. It was when the occupation happened, even Palestinian Christians were pushed into places. It doesn't matter. Even the Jews that sided with Palestine were pushed into the same positions as the Muslim Palestinians.
So what is Israel's objective in this?
Well, Israel is a puppet. It's an extension, I believe, of the United States and some of the other imperialist countries. They do the dirty work for a lot of the people behind the scenes.
Could you also make the argument that Iran is doing the dirty work for the Palestinians? And
no, because Hamas? Nobody is standing up. Hamas is not even an army. They don't have an army. They're people. They're considered freedom fighters because they're actual people fighting for their resistance fighters for their land.
But aren't they the ones that committed the atrocities that sort of got this whole thing?
No, this started in 1948. This didn't start on October 7th.
Well, I understand that, but we've had relative peace for many.
There has not been relative peace. You just have not had media coverage of what's been happening. If you go back and you look at the map of Palestine and you look at where the Palestinian people lived from 1948 till now, they've all been pushed into two places. So, and it's not by their will, it's against their will. But they have nobody fighting for them. Hence, they have people that are resisting, the occupation of their land.
So just one last question, and I appreciate the fact that you and I, who may or may not come from the same place, can stand here and have a respectful conversation. And so I give you immense credit for that.
I'm not Palestinian. She's Palestinian.
Very well.
Yeah, I am Muslim, but I'm not Palestinian.
So let me just ask you, does it bother you that Hamas has created atrocities and have beheaded children and killed pregnant women and kidnapped innocent people?
I don't believe that, but it bothers me that there's a genocide happening in front of the whole world and people are silent.
It's been going on before Hamas was there. It's been going on before Hamas was
If you
there.
go back to 1948 and you go back to when the state of Israel was created in Britain, do your homework, do a history lesson. You'll see how all of this has come to be.
I'm actually doing that right now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm John.
I'm Charity.
Nice to speak with you. And where are you from?
I'm from Milwaukee.
Very good. Thank you.
We're here in Milwaukee for the Republican National Convention. And as we've been talking about for the last 2 months, President Trump picked J.D. Vance as his vice presidential candidate. I've been asked by a lot of people, why J.D. Vance? Well, I'll tell you, he's young, he's charismatic, he's very well liked, he's respected in the United States Senate, and Trump loves him. And so does Trump's inner circle. And that's what I said last Saturday, and that's why he picked J.D. Vance. We also talked about the tragedy that we watched on Saturday, and people have asked me, was it coordinated, or was it just one lone crazed 20-year-old? Here's the case for why I think that it was not one lone gunman. Eyewitnesses reported to the police and wildly gestured to the Secret Service that there was a gunman on the roof. A policeman went up on the roof and saw the gunman. The gunman turned his weapon on the policeman, so what did he do? He ducked down. But why did he not go back and draw his pistol and shoot the guy? Then we also have video footage of 2 Secret Service snipers on the roof across from the bad guy, and they've got him in his sights for 3 minutes. Why did they wait until we got off 6 rounds of ammunition for them to pull the trigger and kill him? And why did they kill him? Why didn't they wound him? They hit him in the shoulder, leave him alive so we can question him and find out what the backstory was. So that's why I think it was not just a lone gunman. The only evidence that I have that would argue otherwise is the attack was not successful. If you've studied the Kennedy assassination, that was clearly, we all know that was a CIA operation. They had that so well rehearsed and choreographed, there was no way that John Kennedy was going to leave Dealey Plaza alive that day. This guy, I think, probably was not recruited. My instinct and my gut tells me that they simply saw him, they were looking for anyone like him, and they allowed him to go up on that roof. They allowed him to pull the trigger. They allowed him to try and assassinate our president. Time will tell. We will learn the truth in time. That is the truth. I'm John Gordon, and we're in Milwaukee.
It's my pleasure now to welcome a special guest to The Truth, Gregg Phillips. He is the co-founder of True the Vote. That company started, or that organization started, in 2013, before election integrity was even a well-known word or phrase in America. And he's been at it for 44 years. Gregg Phillips, welcome to The Truth.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
So I've studied politics my entire life. I majored in
political science in college. I've been a political junkie since the age of 7 when I put on my first bumper sticker for Richard Nixon. So
Nice.
I'm older than you are, but I don't have the experience that you do in this subject. I'm traveling back from the convention as we speak in Milwaukee. In all my days, I've never seen the party more united. Would you agree with that?
100%. I've never seen it anything like this before. And bit young, old, black, white. I mean, it's a true movement at this point, and it's so exciting to watch. I just got some numbers back. I think there's an outstanding chance that Trump will win more than 50% of the votes of 50% of the Hispanic males. You think about where we were just a handful of years ago. My goodness, what a movement that is, right? And talk about expanding the tent. They've been talking about the big tent forever and ever, but it was always in sort of a negative context to try to take real conservatives and push us into some sort of a hole and say, we're going to expand the tent, we're going to bring in some more people that don't think like you do. But golly, I tell you what, we are in for one of the most interesting, fascinating movements of a lifetime to watch and see what happens between now and November the 5th. It's just exciting time to be here.
Well, I tell you, my instinct, I want to go there with you. I really do. I mean, I feel like that President Trump truly is the best president, maybe ever, certainly since Washington. Maybe we'll put Lincoln as a tie. But our country is in the worst shape I've ever seen it in. And I worry about it every day. And so in 2018, I had very high expectations for the Republican Party. That year, we lost our majority in the House of Representatives. 2020, I was absolutely certain that Trump was going to win. I think he did win. I think you think he did win. I've watched 2000 Mules and Rig 2020. And I've also worked as a lawyer, mainly as fundraiser and communications on the case in the Bob Shealy, Charles Bundren, and Preston Halliburton brought in Georgia against the Fulton Board of Elections, which is still ongoing, by the way. And we have a standing order from a Superior Court judge to unseal the absentee ballots that has never happened. Meanwhile, Fani Willis has indicted 19 people for trying to change the outcome of an election when it was her side that actually did change the outcome of an election. The point I'm trying to get to is I've fallen for this company line too many times now. And I just watched a video this morning or read an article that Trump is actually polling with 52% of the popular vote, which has never happened in the modern times. Greg, it just feels too good to be true. I don't want to get my hopes up and just have the knees come out from underneath me again. Can we get an honest, fair election? To me, that's everything about 2024.
Agreed. In fact, I couldn't have said it better than you just did. I think our great, it's not just our great hope, but it's hope born of what we're experiencing right now. Just as you saw, at the convention, and maybe the greatest show of unity ever on our side. I mean, when I say ever, I now mean ever.
It was exciting to be there, I have to tell you. It was my first time, and it was worth waiting for.
Such an incredible time. I think what worries me most, because we are still relatively immature as a movement, that it's easy to get distracted, right? It's easy to say, wow, that was great, and Trump's ahead, and woo, let's go on vacation, and let's kind of, peel back our efforts here and save a little bit of money. Trump's got $1 zillion, everybody's going to win. I would just urge everyone to sort of think back and understand kind of where we've been at various times over the years. And however old you are, you've no doubt seen it, whether it's 2018 when we lost the House when we didn't think we would, or any other time in American political history. What happens is people get fat, dumb, and happy, and it's like, okay, I'm good. But
Makes you wonder if that's part of the mainstream media's objective, is to lull us into a false sense of security.
100%. Yes. And I believe that what happens with us is that it's that old phrase, focus on the signal and not the noise. In my learned opinion, that in 44 years of doing this, it's noise like this where we think we're ahead, or where we do maybe, okay, I can take a breath for a few weeks or something like that. We're 108 days away from one of the most consequential elections in history. I've said this almost from going back into the early 80s, that it is in a constitutional republic, it is the duty, it is the plight of the patriot to remain forever vigilant in the form of what we do with elections. The battles are the elections. The war is for the republic. If you lose too many of the battles, you're going to lose the war. I think where we need to focus now, we need to understand that the battle is the only signal that really matters right now. What do we do in these next 108 days? What are you going to do as an individual? Are you going to get out and knock on doors? Are you going to make phone calls? You're going to develop your own, personal get out the vote plan like we used to do back in the early 80s, where you go find 10 people that in your circle, and they're yours. They're on your calendar. You call them, you try to keep up with them, you be sure they get out the vote, you do all of those things. But whatever you decide to do as a patriot in these times, has to really focus on what that signal is. And the signal is November 5th, 2024. All the rest of the stuff that's going to happen between now and then, whatever the Biden folks do, whatever, if it's Michelle Obama or whoever else it is that's going to run, it doesn't make any difference. We have things we have to do. We have until August the 5th to clean the voter rolls in all but 3 states. So we have to keep focusing. We have an app called iv3.us, the number 3, IV number 3.us. You can log in and you can sit there and clean the voter rolls in your own county, in your own precinct, however narrow or big you want to be. We have some amazing people. People in Georgia are stepping up in the most incredible way. There have been hundreds of thousands of challenges submitted, and we're very excited about all of this. But once that's done, let's say we finish that on August the 6th. Now we've got to start thinking about getting out the vote. We've got to start thinking about all these people who don't live in 450,000 people don't live in Georgia, do not live in Georgia, and they are still registered to vote. So what are we going to do about that?
Raffensperger continues to maintain that our election is safe and secure.
Yeah, and which is ridiculous. I mean, in our big lawsuit where Stacey Abrams, Mark Elias, and the Biden Justice Department sued us over the challenging of voter rolls, we had 364,000 voters that we challenged on December the 15th of 2020. So just before those runoffs where your 2 senators were being elected. But think about the timing here. The way this works, just to refresh everybody's memory, you have an election, and then the Secretary of State has to canvass the individual counties. And what that canvassing is really just counting what are your votes. And so when all the canvassing comes in, then they look at it, they add them back up, they check them, they do whatever. And assuming there are no lawsuits, of which there were 2 in Georgia, that made them do the audit and then do the recounting again. And that took them all the way up until December the 11th, I think, that they finally certified it. But remember, listen to these dates. On December the 11th, they certified an election that they knew was false. And here's how we know they knew. On December the 13th, 2 days after the certification, Catherine, my partner, Catherine, our PR person, and a whole stack of people went to Raffensperger's office and said these words: "We're working on a challenge, a massive statewide challenge that will go across the state, and it's big." Raffensperger said, "How big?" 364,000 people. Remember, he certified that the election had just happened just before that. 2 days before that, he certified it. But here's what he said to Catherine. He said, he got out his little pen and a little piece of paper, a little envelope, and back of the envelope, that sounds about right. About 10, 11% people move every year. So, 364,000 sounds right. They hadn't cleaned the voter rolls since 2019. He knew that there were 364,000 ineligible voters when he certified that election because he told us so 2 days later. He said, yeah, that sounds about right. All those people are on the rolls. They're not eligible. Republican Party should have been doing that all this time. And then we get into the court, and Ryan Germany, his lawyer at that point, comes in because Raffensperger skipped out on the subpoena. We subpoenaed Raffensperger to come, and he wouldn't come, so he sent Germany in his place. Ryan Germany shows up in our courtroom, opposed to us clearly, and says, yeah, well, Judge, here's the way we do this. We only clean in off years, meaning 2017, 2019, 2021, 2023, 2025. We're like, wait, every 2 years? How about every 2 months or every 2 quarters or every 2 days or something, every 2 years? Because if you think about it, this was in November of 2023. And what he was testifying is that we just finished cleaning the voter rolls in Georgia in the summer of 2023, and we weren't going to do it again until the summer of 2025. So where we stand today, right now, as we speak, 108 days before the election, you, citizens of Georgia, have on your voter rolls 450,000 people who don't live in your state that are registered to vote still because they didn't clean the voter rolls.
That is an alarming number of people.
It's
Particularly
outrageous.
when you consider that the election for President Trump in 2020 was decided by 11,780 votes. That is an absolutely alarming number.
I'll take it even a step further and frighten you even more by adding a few more numbers to this. Once the reason it's so important to sue before the certification or to stop it before the certification is that once it's certified, honestly, it's really hard to go back and fix. I mean, there are a few instances in US history where it's happened, but it doesn't happen very often. And you've got to stop it before the certification. But the only way to stop it before the certification is to know who voted, right? When you go, so you hear all these court cases that were dismissed. A lot of them were because, including some of ours, were dismissed because we couldn't tell them who voted. We could tell them who lived out of the state, but what the judges wanted to know was who voted. All that certification happened in December. The runoff election happened on January 6th or January 5th. But the state of Georgia did not publish who voted until April of 2021. So all of the suits were done. Everything had already happened. And all of a sudden they come out and say, hey, here you go. Here's all the people that voted. Well, we went back and cross-matched it, right? We said 364,000 people were ineligible to vote. And the vote was determined by 11,000 and some change, I think you said, right?
Yeah.
Now, listen to these numbers and now think about how disgusting what really happened was. Of those 364,000 people ineligible to vote, 67,240 voted. 67,000 people who do not live in the state of Georgia voted. And in the runoff, a couple of weeks, a week or so into 2021, where the 2 senators were elected, 47,000 of those same 364,000 people voted in that election, in those runoff elections. And
why are the people that like David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, why are they not screaming from the rooftops? I mean, if that had happened to me, I would be going to every person who would engage with me, as well as the media, which will not, by the way, but we'd have them on the truth. That's for certain.
well, we've had great conversations with David. David's a friend. In fact, we showed him some of the mule stuff before. He was one of the very first people. We showed David Schaefer, Perdue, and Sonny Perdue. They all came to a little private luncheon we had at the Buckhead Club where we showed them the facts and we showed them the realities of what really happened. We talked to them about all of these numbers. We even talked to them about some of the mules related stuff that had begun to kind of leak itself out at that point, and really had an opportunity to really share with them. Schaefer had been aware of it for quite some time and was very, very, very helpful to us. I just have enormous respect for David Schaefer, and what he's going through is just unheard of. But we had a very interesting conversation with Sonny and David Perdue about this topic. I haven't spoken directly with Senator Loeffler about it, but I have spoken with some of her people about the topic. And it's really one of those things that you really have to be focused on the numbers, right? Okay, I'm going to come talk to you about numbers, and just here's the timeline. On January 5th, or January 3rd, this happened. On this happened, and just show it to them, and then say when we knew certain things, because Raffensperger admitted to us 2 days after the certification that there were 364,000 people or so that were ineligible to vote. And oh, by the way, on that famous call that he had that weekend at New Year's, that Trump had the call with Raffensperger, the famous call where
Sure.
all the people were on. Remember what he told Trump? Trump brought up all of the dirty voter rolls, and Raffensperger said the words, "There's nothing to see there. There's nothing to see there." He had just admitted it to
So he
us.
knowingly lied
He had just
and has
admitted it
continued
to
to.
us. Yeah,
All right,
continues to lie
so
about it.
you have had your brushes with the deep state, permanent Washington, whatever you want to call it. Tell us some of the challenges that they have thrown in your way.
It goes back forever. I always start with this. So Catherine Engelbrecht, my partner, when she started True the Vote, she started because she was a small business owner. She had two young kids, and really just she heard all these terrible stories about what happened in 2008, and she wanted to get in and help. And so she got a bunch of her friends, and they went up and started watching the polls or watching the voting the next municipal election in 2009. Just after that, she started True the Vote, and within a month, they burned all $30 million worth of equipment to the ground in the warehouse where all of this stuff was. $30 million, and then blamed it on her. In a period of 2 years, she had 27 different visits and audits from the IRS, the ATF, the FBI, OSHA. I can't remember who all came knocking on her door, knocking on her business's door, and saying, "Who are you?" All because she had the audacity to demand free and fair elections.
They're
And from
supposed to
there,
be on our side, Greg. These are people that are
100%.
supposed to be helping us get honest and free elections. They should be celebrating you and Catherine as the heroes that you are. So what's
Catherine,
behind it? Where is it coming from?
it's really pretty stunning. So Catherine decided, God bless her, she's the strongest woman I think I know. I mean, between her and President Trump, we have some enormous strength of people that I know. But Catherine said, "You know what? I'm done with this. All I asked for was a 501c3. I asked to be certified as a nonprofit organization, and the IRS wouldn't do it. They investigated her. They sent people knocking on her doors, going to see her friends, saying all this horrible stuff about her. Lois Lerner, yeah, absolute intimidation. Lois Lerner did all the stuff that she did. The Obama White House called her the most dangerous person in America. And Catherine's like the kindest, nicest person that I know. She's tough.
I don't know
She's
her, but I've spoken to her a few
a
times. She's
very, very, very
very
kind
smart.
human being. Very
Yes.
smart, very kind human being. And she just said, "You know what? I'm just going to sue the IRS." So she did. Took her 7 years. She finally beat them. 7 years and $2 million or something. Finally beat them. I think the lawyers got paid off by the settle or part of the settlement from Treasury, but she ended up getting nothing out of it other than satisfaction to knowing that she beat the IRS, and she did. She beat them. But we've been put in jail by a federal judge who was trying to force us to divulge a source I went to jail. I was the one actually in the meeting, so she had no business being put in jail. It would have been hearsay if she would have said the name. But nevertheless, they put us in a medium security prison outside of Houston, in hopes that we would seal the or come out and just they would break us, right? They put me in administrative segregation, and ADSEG in a federal prison, medium security, is not a fun place to be. I'll tell you that. Catherine was in a really tough situation where she was in the prison. It was all over us refusing to turn over the name. They wanted to kill us. They wanted to kill the people who had done the analysis, and we refused. And they put us in prison. Thankfully,
For how
we had
long?
great. We were only in there for about 10 days, but the reason
that's
why there was
a short
there was
period of time, unless you're the one who's sitting there.
yeah,
I would
yeah,
go
that's
crazy in 10 days.
it was really hard. It hit Catherine a lot harder than it hit me. It was really difficult.
Well, I'm
But
very
in
sorry for
it,
your having
but
served your
in the,
country and that's your
well,
reward.
thank you.
I think that's
Thank you for that.
disgraceful.
In
Pitiful.
the end, the reason that we got out is our lawyers wrote an amazing sort of an urgent action memo, or whatever they call those things in federal court of appeals, to get us released, and only because the federal court of appeals ordered us released immediately. It was a one-line deal: release them from jail immediately. And so
Well, that
they
does
couldn't even.
restore some measure of faith, but there are people in the Jan 6 roundup that have not been able to have habeas corpus hearings, that are just
It's
sitting in
unbelievable.
jails and literally rotting away.
It's so disgusting to me what they're doing to those people. But for us, I mean, they couldn't even, these knuckleheads couldn't even figure out how to release us because we hadn't been charged with anything. And so there were no orders to keep them there for this period of time or whatever. And so they didn't even know what to do or how to release us. Finally, the court, that was on a Saturday, on Monday, the court then issued the actual ruling, which scorched this judge. He was a your listeners may not know, federal judges, even though Schedule C judges that serve for life, he was he was on what they call senior status, meaning he was just at home making his $200,000 a year in retirement, and he can come in anytime and take a case. He came into the court to take our case, ended up having to recuse himself. And the day before, when the new judge came in, the day before discovery was due, we have this site called Open Inc, open.ink. You can go in and look at all this stuff. It's open.ink/Konnech, Konnech. And we dumped all of our discovery into Open Inc, all of it. They dropped the case the next day. And so everything that we went to jail for, it was all gone. It all vanished. There's nothing they could do to, at that point, because they had improperly imprisoned us and so on and so forth. Well, that guy who had been arrested, the guy who sued us for defamation, had already been arrested in Los Angeles. I testified in the grand jury hearing that ultimately had him arrested. And the DA out in LA, who's a famous leftist, Gascon's his last name, ultimately just in the last few months did a settlement agreement with this guy's lawyers. Now, he was guilty. He was guilty of everything they accused him of in Los Angeles County. Everything. Guilty as he could be. And he moved to Singapore or somewhere and said he had permanently moved, but got Gascon to give him a $5 million settlement from the citizens and the taxpayers in California, to make him feel better, because he got his feelings hurt because he had to go to jail.
So I was going to say a moment ago, I really want to inspire our voters to go vote and participate. And I'm going to do everything, as you suggested, that I can to encourage the most participation. And I think it's the best way we can push back. And as President Trump has encouraged people to do, just overwhelm them with our votes. But I've got to tell you that they have tried everything, as you and every other living American who with a brain and a conscience would have to say. They've indicted Trump, impeached him twice under totally fictitious circumstances. They have prosecuted him, persecuted him in 4 significant lawsuits, most of which have gone away except for Alvin Bragg's, which is still lingering out there. And Letitia James has got this huge amount of $110 million of Trump's money that she's holding as ransom. I literally don't know how the guy handles it. And he has beat them at every single turn. So what do we see? 2 days before the Republican National Convention, there is an attempt on the president's life. Now, as you and I were talking before we went on the air, I've studied the Kennedy assassination for 65 years. Our listeners have heard it. What happened on Saturday is eerily similar to me in what happened to Kennedy. You have a supposed lone gunman who was under surveillance by the Secret Service and police, who they claim they lost touch with at some point. But then he climbed a ladder, for God's sakes, and took an assault rifle with him. People in the crowd could see him. Why couldn't the police see him? We have a Secret Service sniper who is sitting there trained on the assassin for over a minute. And he waits to pull the trigger until the assassin pulls his trigger, hitting the president in the ear. And we are to believe that this was just all a series of coincidental events. There's one lady, a brunette, who was sitting behind Trump. I watched it on YouTube day before yesterday, and she is sitting there calmly filming. As the shots rang out, she didn't flinch. She didn't cower. She sat there and continued to film. Now there are people that have connected her with someone who looks very, very similar to her, who is an assistant director of the FBI. I'm telling you, Greg, I am as worried as I can be for the safety of our president or our nominee of the Republican Party. I am concerned that they will not stop, that they will continue to try and assassinate him. And when all of that fails, I've been telling our listeners for a month, I don't predict, but I'm concerned that these people are so desperate that they will get us into a war, a conflict with Russia or China, and that they will suspend the elections on the basis of some national security claim. I want to think we're going to get it over the line. I want Trump to get in and cleanse our federal government. How do we protect against that? My strategy is just to keep talking about it so that enough people will suspect it or be concerned about it, that how dare them try it. But Tucker Carlson, everybody was saying they were going to try and assassinate Trump. And by God, they did 2 days before the convention started. Only by the grace of God is he alive.
Indeed. It was a catastrophic failure almost across the board on every single person involved in that. I've been doing advanced work for 44 years, and I can tell you that if that building was really looped in outside of the perimeter, or outside of the outside perimeter, which they're now claiming that it was, that is an outrage in and of itself. That line of sight that guy had would be the only one that you would consider as an advanced type person, someone looking at this and saying, how do we best protect this guy? That's what's called the hot zone.
I'm not quibbling with you.
That building was in the hot zone.
Totally. It was a football field away, and that rifle was good for 400 yards. So it was certainly something that would have been protected immediately. Leading me to the point, you called it a failure. I don't think it was a failure. I think it was absolutely planned, intentional, and that it was done by people of our own government. Now, I don't have cold facts, But you take all the circumstantial evidence that we have, and it's overwhelming that it was, in my mind, completely planned and orchestrated.
And if I could just add one thing,
yes,
a former president doesn't have a full complement of a presidential Secret Service detail. They have a post-presidential complement of guys, and these people are amazing. I mean, I know many of them. They're absolutely amazing people. One of my best friends is married to one of them, and these guys are just unbelievably just true patriots committed to their job. But
well, I'm not indicting the Secret Service rank and file, the people that were in the field, because like yourself, I've been to Mar-a-Lago many times. I have sat with the president in his office on 2 different occasions and have met a lot of the Secret Service people there. It's not a small staff by any means, and
right, but he would have gotten
field.
That's to me, absolutely true.
But
he would have gotten his full complement today.
Yes,
the way the rules work is he had to be the nominee of the party.
Right? I understand your point.
And you think about that. Okay, with everything else that's going on, you've got motorcycle policemen being relieved of duty because they helped get him to the hospital. You've got the head of the motorcycle unit, which is a very elite group, and these people are. I mean, this is an honor, and they perceive it as an honor. Who got fired from his job and taken off of that detail 3 weeks ago. I mean, you start adding all these things up, and the woman sitting behind him. I mean, somebody asked me about it when it first happened, and I said, "Well, that's a Secret Service," and I just assumed. I mean, that's a Secret Service person because the Secret Service puts undercover people in the crowd, right? And so that's who I assumed that was. Now we're finding out, well, maybe it was part of the FBI. Well, wait, what? What do you mean she was part of the FBI? How could that be? And you just can't say, oh, that was nothing or that was nothing when there's 1,000 nothings out there. And there's something big that happened. And the fact that they're not talking yet is the biggest tell of all.
Well, this kid, Thomas Matthew Crooks, and I am open to the possibility that it was a coincidence. But he was in a Blackstone ad 2 years ago. And Blackstone, obviously, I mean, they own 5% of every Fortune 500 company in America. I mean, they are at the top of the pinnacle. I mean, it just makes you really wonder what is going on. And then, of course, there's no social media, no trail, no nothing about this kid. And so was he recruited? I don't know. I'm willing to kind of take the position that at a minimum, they knew that he was a risk and they allowed him to proceed. They allowed him to get the shot off before they took him out. And this guy, obviously, this marksman, Secret Service marksman, was obviously good enough that he could hit him square in the middle of the head. My preference would have been that they hit him square in the middle of the shoulder, incapacitate him, arrest him, and then interview him, and we would know the truth. But of course, they weren't going to allow us to see that. And I feel like one of those right-wing conspiratorialists sitting here saying these things because it seems so improbable. But to deny what is in front of our face and our eyes and our ears and our brains, I think would be irresponsible and reckless of all of us. And I think we've got to stand up and take note and push back. Gregg Phillips, thank you so much. I wish we had more time, but I hope you will come back. And
absolutely. It's
truly an honor to have you on. You have been fighting for our country for a long time, even before the rest of us knew that we had a battle to fight, and we owe you a debt of gratitude.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Since beginning our broadcast, few segments have sparked the kind of reaction that the segment that we did on electric vehicles and particularly Tesla a few weeks ago garnered. We got emails and calls and texts from people, and it seems that the subject of EVs stirs a lot of emotion. It really taps into people's pushback on climate or their embrace of climate. The reality is, according to NASA, the globe has been warming really since the mid-1800s. In 1850, the Earth started warming each year, not a lot, but about 0.11 degrees every decade. So if you track that back to 1850 and bring it all the way forward, and it was pretty consistent for those decades that we saw that 0.11 degree Fahrenheit increase in the average temperature on the Earth, the surface of the Earth. Well, that changed in 1982 when we saw a threefold increase. And by approximately 2023, we were almost 2.5 degrees warmer per year than we were in 1982. During that period of time from 82 to 2023, the temperature warmed 0.36 degrees per decade. So it is warming, and it's warming at a concerning, although maybe not yet alarming rate. And the people that are espousing the climate change philosophy and beliefs are the ones who say that we can intervene, that we can do something about it, that we have the ability to control our destiny. Well, I, for one, don't really buy into that. I don't believe that the carbon emissions are the primary cause of change. The fact of the matter is that since the mid-1850s, the globe has continued to warm at a slow rate, but then at an increasingly slow rate. So, but the point of that conversation is that a lot of people thought that our segment on electric vehicles was somehow tied to our beliefs about climate change, and it simply isn't. The fact of the matter is, while I may not be a subscriber to the climate dogma, I am and view myself as a conservationist. I believe that it is incumbent upon me to leave the planet better than I found it, at least where I'm concerned. So I pick up my trash, I separate my trash into recyclable bottles, and turn out the lights, turn up the thermostat in the summer and turn it down in the winter to the point that my wife will permit me to do so. And I also drive an electric vehicle. So before I get into the conversation I want to have with you today, let me just remind you that we come to you each Saturday on the John Fredericks Radio Network across the John Fredericks platform in Atlanta, Memphis, Nashville, Richmond, Norfolk, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and the state of West Virginia. So join us there. You can also go to the John Fredericks app on the App Store for iOS or on the App Store for Androids. The app is there. You just search for John Fredericks, download it, and you can listen to us anywhere you happen to be on any given Saturday at noon. We also live stream for you on YouTube Live, Rumble, and Getter, and we post all of our past episodes on rumble.com. So if you'd like to go visit us on one of those platforms, by all means do. And if you feel it in your heart, you'd like to, please consider subscribing. It would help us a lot, and we would welcome you to subscribe to our channels. And if you like it, then hit the like button. But if you don't bother. A lot of people think that EVs are really no better than internal combustion engine cars. Well, that's just not true. The fact of the matter is that EVs, for me, and I've had a Tesla now for over 2 years, they are a better mousetrap. And I'll give you the list of things that make them a better mousetrap in just a second. But people say that, EVs cost too much. Well, that's true right now. And that they couldn't exist were it not for the subsidies. Well, that is not true either. And I'll tell you in a minute why that's not true. But here are the things that EVs don't have that ICE vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles, do have. EVs don't have carburetors. They don't have catalytic converters. They don't have tailpipes. They don't produce emissions. They don't have a gear shift knob because there is no transmission. They don't have noise. They don't have radiators. They don't have fuel injectors or gas tanks. nor do they have valve trains. You don't have to change the oil in electric vehicles, and the brakes wear out a lot less frequently because regenerative braking actually saves the brake pads. So what does that mean? It means a whole lot less maintenance. And I've had my car now for 2 years, as I said. I've not taken it to the shop one time, not once. So those are the reasons that I say it is a better mousetrap. But a lot of people get almost hysterical when you start talking about electric vehicles. They love their monster cars. They love that roar and they love the acceleration. Well, if you like the acceleration in an ICE vehicle, you're going to be crazy about it in an EV because it can go from 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. And if you get the supercharged version, it's under 3 seconds. It truly is a phenomenon. But then people say, oh, they don't go far enough. And there are not enough charging stations. And you can't travel really long distances. Well, the reality is they go 325 miles to a charge. And that will get you halfway from here, where I am sitting now in West Palm Beach, Florida, to Atlanta. Well, guess what? I have to stop to fill up my ICE vehicle from West Palm to Atlanta. So you can stop at a charging station. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer to charge than it does to fill up, but the time is coming down. And if you stop at a supercharger station along the way, it is just a little bit longer than the time that it takes to fill up with gasoline. And so most people really are at the service station longer than just to fill up, okay? You go in, you get a hot dog or you get something to eat, a bag of crackers, you go to the restroom. Most people can't drive nonstop for more than about 4 or 5 hours. So that's what an electric vehicle will provide for you. And so you just stop and recharge rather than refill. Same difference. So where are we in this debate? Well, we have pushed through. We'll put the adoption curve up here for you. And the adoption curve is very similar, whether you're talking about the telephone or the television set or a color television set. All right, I'm showing my age. How about the more modern day? How about a microwave? The adoption curve is very similar. Okay, you want to talk about the cell phone? Well, I had the first cell phone that came out, and it was about yay big, and it weighed about 2 pounds. The adoption curve was very similar, and then came the iPhone. The adoption curve, again, repeated itself. Now, the difference is how long does it take to get from the flat line to the point where the S-curve goes vertical? Well, that's where we are with the electric vehicle adoption curve right now, I believe. There is a segment in that adoption curve called the chasm, and that's really where we are, and we're pushing through that point right now. And today, electric vehicles comprise about 18% of new car sales in the United States. If you go to China, it's much higher than that. China is the largest nation in the world with the largest adoption of electric vehicles. They're much further along than we are. But if you go to Finland, oh my gosh, 90% of new car sales are electric. And Europe is ahead of the United States. We'll put that chart up for you to see as well. But we're catching up. 18%, as I said, last year in new car sales were electric. And then people start talking about, oh, well, Tesla wouldn't exist were it not for the government subsidies. Well, I've got news for you. Those subsidies didn't exist until Biden put them in a year and a half ago. Now, they were in existence prior to Trump coming in office. He allowed them to expire, and then Biden resumed them. But the reality is Elon Musk has said repeatedly that he could care less about subsidies for Tesla. The real beneficiary of the subsidies are Ford and General Motors, because this is the truth. For every electric vehicle that Ford sells, they lose $100,000. So if the cost of the car is 50, they lose another 50, and the consumer may pay 50,000 for the car, but Ford loses another 50. So they lose 100%, they lose 200% for each dollar they take in. Now, it seems impossible, almost hard to imagine, but it's true. GM similarly loses money on every electric vehicle they sell when you average it across the platform. Tesla has an advantage that none of these automakers have. For every car that Tesla sells, they earn a 21% gross profit. That's 21% compared to GM's 13.5% and Ford's 8.5%. So without the subsidies, GM and Ford would have no path to electrification, and I predict that they will go bankrupt. I think that Tesla's lead is so far ahead of GM and Ford that they are not going to be able to catch up. The only chance they have is for the subsidies. But mark my word, electrification of vehicles is coming. The Chinese are far ahead of the United States in EV adoption, and they will come to the United States. Now, if President Trump gets elected, they will face some stiff tariffs, and that's going to make it difficult for them to get a foothold, but they are coming at some point. Well, Tesla's gone through a really tough period of time over the last 6 or 9 months. Interest rates, as you know, have gone up. That has constrained demand on all new car sales, and Tesla has felt that pinch as well. But now it seems like demand is starting to return. In the second quarter, Tesla delivered 443,956 electric vehicles. And that's redundant, really, when I say Tesla delivered those vehicles and that they're electric vehicles, because that's all Tesla produces is electric vehicles. Now, that's 443,000 and some change, almost 444,000 against the analyst estimates of 439,000. So they beat the analyst estimates. Now, in case you live under a rock and have not followed the news about Tesla over the last 6 months, you may not know that a judge in Delaware disqualified Elon Musk's pay plan that the shareholders approved for him in 2019. Now, this pay plan was so outrageous that nobody thought that Elon Musk could accomplish it. It was all tied to revenues, profits, and measurable quantitative achievements. No one thought he could do it. Well, the reality was, in order to collect the pay package, which amounted to $54 billion, by the way, he had to achieve not some of them or most of them, he had to achieve all of them. The board recommended it, the shareholders approved it, and guess what? Tesla achieved every single milestone and objective. So this judge in Delaware, who was ruling on a lawsuit brought by a guy who owned a grand total of 9 shares of Tesla stock, ruled that the pay plan was invalid. Musk delivered what he promised, yet the shareholders were prohibited from delivering what they promised, according to this judge. So just last month, just a couple of weeks ago, Musk and Tesla had a shareholders meeting. And Tesla, by the way, is one of the, if not the most popular retail-owned companies. Institutions own, as I recall, about between 15 and 20%. Musk owns 18%, I believe, maybe 20%. And retail investors own the rest. So it is very heavily lopsided towards the retail investor. Well, they overwhelmingly ratified, 90% ratified Musk pay plan. The shareholders voted overwhelmingly to move the corporate headquarters and the state of incorporation from Delaware to Texas. So there will be a move, unquestionably, to get that case out of the Delaware court and move it to Texas. And this ratification will have now been effected under Texas law rather than Delaware law. Hopefully it will strip this liberal judge of her ability to revoke the will of the shareholders. It was just absolutely the most egregious decision that I've ever seen, and I've been a member of the bar since 1979. All right, so the cloud around Musk compensation has been lifted. The state of incorporation has been moved to Texas, where Musk actually has physically relocated the Tesla headquarters. And the deliveries significantly surpassed what everybody on the street thought that Tesla would deliver. So guess what's happened? The stock is soaring. Now, I don't give investment advice. This is not investment advice. Please, by all means, do your own research. Don't do anything because of what I've told you. But I will, in full disclosure, tell you that Tesla is my second largest holding in my own personal portfolio. I bought it 10 years ago. I'm a very happy camper. But just since April the 22nd of this year, Tesla stock hit a low at that point of $142. It closed today, when we're making this video, just above $250. It still has another $50 a share to go before it gets back to its historic high of $299. So there are people who do make their living investing in stocks and running funds, like Kathy Wood, who has the ARK and Technology Fund, and a guy named Ron Barron, who is a billionaire and is one of the largest shareholders of Tesla. Both of these individuals independently have valued Tesla over the next 5 years based on everything that they've got in the works, and predict that the stock price will be $2,500 per share in just 5 years. So that's a tenfold increase over where it is today, and that's just within 5 years. Well, folks, I have seen this stock. I've ridden it all the way up to $299, ridden it all the way down to $100 a share, which it got to last year. My vision is long-term. My grandfather gave me a few shares of a small country bank in Ohio in 1967. I still have every one of those shares today. It's through a series of mergers and sales. That company is now JP Morgan Chase, and it has been a very good investment strategy, which I learned straight from the Oracle of Omaha himself, Warren Buffett, because that is his investment strategy. It is also mine. And so I'm here for Tesla for the long haul. And I have looked at Kathy Wood's predictions and Ron Barron's. There are other YouTubers out there that you can go watch. If you just enter TSLA in the YouTube search bar, you'll get enough videos to last you a week or two. And they are really fascinating to watch. But a lot of people think that Tesla is just a car company. And that is a large, grossly understatement, and a very narrow vision of what that company truly is. Yes, they are an electric car company, and they are the largest producer of EVs in the world. They have the largest market share. The Tesla Model Y is the best-selling model of any vehicle anywhere in the entire world, and it is only continuing to get better, and the cost is coming down. Here are the other components of this company. On my Tesla, I bought full self-driving, and I can leave my house here and drive to Miami. And when I do that on full self-driving, I will only have one or maybe two interventions, which I do at my option. The car has not had an intervention since I've been driving the full self-driving, except when I do something stupid. If I become inattentive or don't respond to the message that says shake the wheel a little bit, it will disconnect the autopilot. But it truly is a marvel. Folks, it is coming. 45,000 people die every year in the United States alone, 2 million worldwide in automobile accidents. This technology is believed to have the potential to save those lives. It absolutely, don't you agree? It's absolutely worth it to invest and to make that become a reality. That does the 45,000 I mentioned. I think it's actually 43,000 to be precise. Doesn't include or even begin to touch the number of people who are injured in automobile accidents each year and may become paralyzed for life. And so this technology has the potential to dramatically improve the safety of our roads. Now, with the advent of autonomy comes the potential for what Tesla calls robo-taxis. It basically is a Uber or Lyft replacement. And on August the 8th, just a little over a month from now, Tesla is going to have Robo-Taxi Day, which will be a meeting for shareholders and stakeholders and the media to come and learn about Tesla's plans for the robo-taxi. Now, the robo-taxi is going to slay Uber and Lyft. Why? Because it's not going to have a driver. And that's the most expensive component of any Uber ride that you take. It's the cost of that guy or gal sitting in the front seat driving the car. And the robo-taxi will eliminate the driver and give you a safer ride at the same time. Well, what does that mean to you? It means the cost per mile is going to go from about $6 a mile right now to just a little over $1 a mile. So a ride will be infinitely less expensive than it is today. And folks, it's going to be infinitely less expensive than it is for you to own a car. So the belief is, and I'm happen to be one of those people, that it will also help reduce gridlock because a lot of people, maybe even me, will not own a car. You won't have to worry about maintenance. You won't have to worry about parking. You won't have to worry about the cost of electricity and insurance. You'll just use your phone. You'll summon a robo-taxi and you'll probably get your neighbor's Tesla. It'll come and pick you up. Cars are used less than 10% of the time in a given day. The rest of the time they sit collecting dust and are doing nothing. So if you own a Tesla and you want to put it in the robo-taxi fleet, you can turn this asset into a revenue stream. And maybe I'll try that. But the very significant point of this is that when the robo-taxi becomes a reality, and I think that they're going to unveil it on August the 8th, that platform is going to also provide a low-cost electric vehicle for the average consumer, and it's going to be priced at or below $25,000 per car. And that's when Tesla stock, I believe, is just going to take off to the moon because it will be an electric car for the masses, fully self-driving. So then people say, oh, well, you know, it costs as much to produce the energy for a Tesla as it does to provide gasoline. Well, that's not true because it probably costs me about $15 a week in energy to drive my car. And when my new home is completed, I'm going to be off the grid. And so my energy for my Tesla is going to come from solar panels. Well, Tesla is also the largest producer of solar panels in the United States through their acquisition of Solar City. And so today, not only can you buy a car that is autonomous and will be used for a robo-taxi, but it will also be powered by solar panels produced by Tesla. And then there's one last very significant thing that Tesla is going to bring to the marketplace. It's coming faster than anybody imagined. It was announced 3 years ago, and it's the Optimus robot. Now, you can go look at that on YouTube, too. If you just Google the Optimus robot, the videos will pop up, and it's fascinating. The biggest constraint to output in our economy, in the global economy, is labor. Optimus has the potential to solve the labor problem, and it is being produced or is being engineered and hopefully will be produced. It's produced in prototype now, but it will be mass produced, and it will do dangerous and repetitive, mundane tasks. You can use the Optimus more than likely to vacuum your rug or to wash your windows. I think it will also be used to paint your house or to re-roof your house. We know that roofing is a very dangerous job, and that will be one of the first tasks that I think that they'll put Optimus to. But this technology is coming at a very rapid rate. It's been under development for 3 years. It was first announced 3 years ago. It is now, as I said, in prototype form. Elon Musk says it's going to be commercially available by 2025, and it will cost under $25,000. So take the Optimus, combine it with solar, the robo-taxi, autonomy, and the electric vehicle. I think it is a company that warrants your research and taking a very hard look at. And you can look at it, look it up on YouTube, spend all the time you want to, just search for TSLA, which is the stock ticker, or TESLA for the company itself. And we've told you the truth today, and I'm John Gordon.
You've been listening to The Truth with John Gordon. To connect with John and get more of the truth, follow and subscribe to @JohnGordonTruth on Getter, Rumble, X, Facebook, and YouTube. The Truth with John Gordon is a production of John Gordon and the John Fredericks Media Network. All rights reserved.